All right. Okay, so we're going to get started. I'm going to share my screen. So we have a presentation for you guys. Hopefully you guys can see it pretty well. And then at the end of our call, I will also send it to you guys so you have it for reference. But let me go ahead and share. 1 second.
It won't move. Did you bring your feet higher last time? I remember you had more space, and that's why I wanted to.
If we can move.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if we can, let's mute our mics so we can all hear. There we go. Oh. All right. Let's see, who am I hearing? Boop. All right. So welcome you guys to the masterclass. Hopefully you could see us and Ashley as well. We'll see how this goes. And then just starting you guys off, thank you so much for joining us. We are super excited to kind of tell you guys about our own organization. We're called the NEU Gym. We are located in Dallas, Texas. We recently opened up back in September. However, Ashley and I have been in this field for a very, very long time. So we'll kind of talk about our own path of reaching us here. So today's masterclass is what we'd like to call the new standard. And I like to tell people, you know, we're all talking different languages, but at the same time, all of our goals are the same, is to help our clients. So we just want to show you our approach and how it just created more results for our clients when we started working with the foundations of the nervous system and the human body. So we'll kind of get started here. So first of all, we just want to talk about our philosophy. So this is our rewire, restore, renew. We always talk about rewiring the brain first so we can restore the chain, which then hopefully will then renew people's lives. This is something that we strive for in every single session, even outside of our sessions. We want to make sure that our clients, even at home, are doing the same type of movements and exercises, or trying to retrain it back at home so they can increase their consistency and everything like that. So that is our philosophy, is rewire, restore, renew. So if you ever see our stuff on social media, that's what this is for us.
So the rewire the brain is more like, what does the rewire the brain means, right? So the chains we all know is the connective chain, the fascial connection. Sometimes we have our client to do a certain movement and do a certain thing, they just simply cannot do it. It's not because their muscle is weak or anything like that. It's because the signal of the brain and the body is not connecting. So we have to get the signal a little bit stronger, and so that we can restoring the movement. So we have to talk about the signal and the sensory input first, right? So that's what rewiring the brain is, rewiring the signal from the brain and the body.
Okay. So a little bit about us. My name is Crystal Moses, one of the founders here. I've been in this field for 10 plus years. I am certified as a strength and conditioning coach, as well as a massage therapist. This really, having the combination of the two, has helped me better understand the human body all at once, especially having my massage license. I really went down the whole rabbit hole of the fascial system and working with the body as a whole and not just treating the symptoms. And that in turn helped me with my training side of everything as well. So it just worked hand in hand with what I do with my clients, and truly understanding the fascial system and how everything works together creates true results. And so I'm excited to kind of showcase you guys what we do.
So I'm Ashley. I'm also a TNG founder here, and I was also a certified strength and conditioner specialist. I started with movement specialist first, and I moved to Texas almost 6 years ago, and that's how I started the neuro. And I become a neuro specialist of the sensory input and the motor output. It's gonna follow, and that's how I got into this field. And I've learned the combination integration of how movement and the neural world has to come in together. A lot of time, PT out there and everything. They do a really good job doing all what they do, and it's just the integration part of the neuro and the movement. So that's what the missing link is. So we're here to try to put them together for you guys.
So a little bit about our gym. So we are currently in our space right now, but we like to tell people this is where boutique studio meets neuro rehab. As we all kind of know that sometimes neuro rehab can be very white coats and everything like that. So we want to make sure that not only are the clients having fun in our gym, but also matching that energy with how it looks and everything like that. So we have different types of equipment. However, what you won't see is any type of pneumatic system. We don't have a light gate or any type of harness system, mainly because we're so new and we just don't have the funds for it. But in the end, it kind of helped us a lot with our clients that we found that we truly don't need those types of equipment, especially if we're trying to show clients that they can mimic what we do in-house back at home. So a lot of the stuff that's in our gym are floor mats. We do have Pilates equipment, but even at home, you don't need a Pilates equipment. You can have a therapy table or you can just get down on the floor. We do have parallel bars and a therapy table with a Smith machine. Some other machines that we do have that are on the higher tech side, I would say, is like a vibration plate, but I think that's as high tech as we get with what we do with our clients. But the main thing that I've noticed with our clientele is we're trying to develop the function so that way they can unlock their movement potential. So that's where we come in and get them on the floor, see what they truly have without our input into their system and into their body, and then truly seeing what can we do with their body and help amplify what type of function they truly have. Our why. Do you want to go over this? Okay, so our why, as you probably all have seen in our why, is like on social media, you will see people post what we call like the sexy posts, right? It's the people who are standing, who are walking. You see all these posts and you're like, oh man, how do I get there? But if you truly look at what some of the people are doing, they're not loading in the correct way that our body and our human performance is supposed to be. So that's where we find that if we stick to the true foundation that helps restore pattern, then you can get into that walking, into that standing. Other things that the reason why we created what we created was, we have noticed that people are going to rehab, whether it's inpatient and outpatient. Unfortunately, at least here in the States, it is insurance baseline, right? Like they will tell you when to stop treatment. And that's very unfortunate because there are so many physical therapists and OTs who are doing an amazing job with these clients. But unfortunately, insurance just doesn't give us the time that these clients need when they see them. And therefore, going to that second part, if progress doesn't look fast, then people just get discharged. And that's truly not how the nervous system works. You need time, unfortunately, when it's inpatient or outpatient based. Insurance kind of tells you what that looks like, unfortunately. So that's where we've created a system that helps train the whole body and not just trying to look at what the outcome is. So we try to get the whole body incorporated. And as you can see in some of these photos here, we're doing different types of movements, whether it's doing stuff on the floor or on our Cadillac machine. We're integrating the whole body and trying to just focus on training the whole body as a system versus just figuring out how can I get them a result. We are working towards that functional pattern of them.
And our approach is more of the higher of the body hierarchy system instead of just skeletal and muscle, right? So when we talk about what are the higher system that control the muscle tone or like the pain and everything is just a symptom, right? So we want to treat the roots of the problem. So this is why we created a system that we created. We're looking for the neurals, CNS, central nervous system, your lymphatic system, your nerve, right? And the blood flow. And that's how we can relate into a better movement and performance. So that's what we're going to go into it.
some takeaways from today that we hope that you get from this is talking about the breathwork mechanics and what's the missing link that a lot of people are missing within breathwork. And we're not talking about how you're breathing. Everyone does breathwork. We'll kind of go into more detail on the next slide of what breathwork mechanics means to us and how we can help release some of that tension in the body. And then after that, going into the lymphatic system as well as the cranial system before we get into movement. Everyone, like Ashley was saying, everyone's focused on the movement, but we have to treat the body with all the different systems that we have in order for us to get optimal movement. And then the last little few of what we want to give you guys is just a couple of the things and a couple of the patterns and concepts that we go over. The first one is going into quadruped, and to my fellow therapists and trainers and everything, we all understand what quadruped is. We teach it just a little bit different with our cues and everything. So we want to try to encourage everyone, if you can, to be a part of this when we go over this. And then going into the deep squat, understanding what that means, Ashley will go over, and then going into our 4-lever versus 2-lever core work and going over that concept. So whenever you're working with the client, you can kind of think of all these concepts in your head and how to integrate them into your session when you're working with your clients and patients.
So this is like the release, activate, and integrate. So what it is that like we're releasing what the compensatory pattern first. If something is holding you back, you cannot perform, right? So we have to release everything inside the compensatory pattern and then activate what is underactive and what is not firing, right? So we release the overactive, activate the underactive, and then we can integrate. So this is the whole system.
So kind of going into what you guys are here for, all of our bread and butter. So going into breathing mechanics, and if you guys think of the clientele that we're working with, they are constantly in their wheelchair, sitting position, right? If they were to go sit on a table, they're always in this slumped forward flexion position, and then you go and lay them on their bed, they're kind of just slumped in their bed. So a lot of times the posture is affected with the breathing. And then with that, you have ribs that are compressed. Sometimes if you see with clients, they might shift in their chair to where they're more comfortable. So they might hook arm to one side. So now they're dealing with a lateral shift. And then who knows what the pelvis is doing when they're in that seated position because of the dump of their chair. So all of those things we see in our breathing mechanics with our clients. If you go and tell people, let's go on the table and go into breath work, you haven't released all this fascial restriction within their body. And that's where we come in and help try to release some of that tension before we go into any type of breath work. And there's nothing wrong with any type of breath work. You can do whichever ones. But if we're just doing these breath works with the ribs being a little elevated on one side more than the other, then they can't really tap into that breath work. So we try to get clients either on the floor or on the tables of some sort and go into different fascial stretches. And you can see these are just 2 examples of what we do with our clients. Very basic movements that I'm sure that all of us have done. We're just putting the emphasis more on when we're doing a sideline torso rotation, we're trying to get that lateral flexion or the lateral fascia to release when we're doing these types of movements. And we actually have a client here today who we want to demo. So if you guys would like to demo with us, we truly think that if you were to learn something, you had to put yourself in it as well. So we're going to kind of show that with our client here that we have. So that way it gives you kind of like a case study of what we do with our clients. So I'm going to get Tins, and if you want to keep talking.
Right. So she's going to get it started. So I just want to get into a little bit of detail of why breathing comes first, right? So breath is always come first no matter what. Why do we want to do that? Breathing is not a muscle. Okay, everybody talk about the diaphragm. No matter how many classes and breathing classes that I've been to, the diaphragm is the key, but the diaphragm is not the key. It's just a muscle. You have to look at breathing is actually a structure, right? So we aim for the structure of the breathing. Why the breath is so important? You want to think about when we breathe, the ribcage expansion, right? So it's actually when we breathe, it's a pumping mechanism throughout our trunk, right? It's not just the diaphragm goes down and contract. What happened when the diaphragm contract is because of the pressure that push the diaphragm contraction. So we have to create that pressure first. And how are we going to create that pressure? By breathing, right? So you inhale, you feel the expansion. It's a 360 expansion all the way down to the pelvic floor. Why is breathing so important? Why do we want to create the pressure? Now we're going to lead to the blood flow, right? So blood only move by pressure in our body. That's why we have blood pressure and everything, right? So now if we are not creating the pressure consistently and correctly, blood flow is not going to move well. And what does the blood flow do? This is why one is going to lead to the other. This is why everything is connected together. And the higher of the hierarchy system, we are going to attack first. Everything else is going to follow. So now the breath, we're creating the pressure, and the pressure moves the blood. So the blood flow is going to move well. If the blood flow doesn't move well, and guess what happened? Your lymph is not going to move well either, because blood is the one thing that is taking the waste out of the cell and also deliver nutrition into the cell. And if your pressure is not being pressurized and the blood is not moving well, that means your waste is not getting out of the flow and nutrition is not getting into the cell. So now, no matter how much of stem cell you do, everybody talk about the stem cell in our world nowadays, right? The thing is, if your cellular level and waste is stuck and stagnated into the cell, it's just our system. It's the same thing. If you're gonna eat, you're not gonna go poop, right? You're stagnated. No matter how much good and nutrition stuff that you eat, you're not able to get in the nutrition because you have all the waste. So now the waste is stuck and stagnated into the cell. It's not getting pulled out. It's not getting flow out through the liver, your kidney, right? And no matter how much stem cell you do, and no matter how much nutrition you're trying to get into the cell, it's not going to absorb well, right? So this is why breath come first, get that pressure system going. Remember, you are a pressure, right? Mechanism, right? The pumping mechanism into the body. So your blood flow can go well, your lymphatic system can get drained well, nutrition can get into the cell, everything can move more smoothly and better, okay? All right, so now we're gonna switch it.
Okay, so I have our client over here, Tin. I want you guys to kind of see what his posture looks like. This is just him sitting on our table right here, but you can see he's got a little bit of a lateral flexion on this side. So when you're in the chair, we don't really see that with our clients. So that's something that we can try to look at. Oh, yep, Stephanie, thank you. I'm gonna take away the screen share so you guys can see a little bit better.
Thank you, Steph.
Yeah, thank you.
This is our first virtual class, by the way.
Yeah, we're
so
newbies.
bear with us.
Thank you. Okay, can everyone see pretty good? Okay, so if we were to have him in his chair, right, we wouldn't really see what type of restrictions he has in his body. The chair is a way of like masking all the compensation in his body, but we want, especially if we're trying to train outside of it, we want to make sure that we can kind of pay attention to what's happening within his fascial system. So this whole left side, you can even see this left shoulder dropping down versus this shoulder. Also, this shoulder is rotated forward. This one is rotated back. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's the stuff that we're trying to look at of like, if I were to just go straight into breathing with him, he's so locked up on this left side. So I need to help release that. Not so much soft tissue work with me getting my hands on, but we can also use Pilates ball. We have foam rollers, bolsters that we can get people into so that way they can get into that fascial stretch of everything. So one of my goals when I see him on my table is I want this whole side right here to try to open up so he has more access to this side of his lungs so he can get better breath. Other things that we can also notice, you can see from the hips, this left hip is a little bit more elevated than this hip here too. So we're dealing with some kind of spiral line type of fascial tightness. So being that the first exercise that we're going to show you is kind of a sideline stretch with his legs. I'm going to put him in a Z sit or a figure 4, however you want to call that. But you'll see that I also want to kind of release some of the tension that's going on the lower body before I even do any type of exercise. So what we're going to have, Tim, can you shift to your left? I'm going to have him lay on his right, and we're going to place a ball under his right ribs over here, Ash.
Yeah.
So that way we can get into that lateral flexion. And if you don't have, there's different tools. Ones that we have here, we have just a regular Pilates ball. We also have this like larger one that we've kind of made a little bit more less inflatable so he can kind of lay on it. Other things, foam rollers, wedges that we have worked with clients. We found that doing something like this, especially when you're dealing around with the ribs, it could feel a little sensitive. So we go in with some kind of Pilates stability ball of some sort. Okay, so we're actually going to use this one. So I'm going to have you here, and then we're going to bring his feet up on the table. And bend the knees. And then let me get y'all a little closer. There we go. So right now, Tin, I want you to go down onto your shoulder and then bring that shoulder forward. And then your left arm, you're going to reach that up and over your head. And so, yeah, so right now you can see Ashley is anchoring the hip. You can really see his spine is in a neutral position, which is awesome. This is fantastic. He loves this stretch, right, Tin? So, so we have this lateral flexion here. His arm is just reaching forward as of right now, but this also can show you how much restriction he has in his shoulder joint too. So it's almost like you've got to get these cues from your body or from your head to see like, what is it that this client is working with? So that's like kind of another little marker for us that we know that we've got some like shoulder tightness, maybe in the lats a little bit coming over this way. And then with the lower body, can we go into that figure 4? So bend this knee and then bring this one back up. Yeah. So now you could see we're getting into the lower part of his fascia as well. So getting into the glutes, that IT band and everything through here. I can bring his leg back, but it's so tight right now. So we're gonna kind of work with his body. But eventually I would want this knee to be a little further back, okay? And Ashley, she's anchored at the hip, anchored at the other knee, so that way we can stabilize him. And then you would just work this motion right here. So things that he can do in this position is reaching that arm forward. So go past that bar in the front. And then he can get into what we call the spiral line as well. And rotate and get into his breath here. So from here, you can have him work on breathing, trying to inhale and exhale through the ribs, and really trying to get more awareness on what's happening on the back. A lot of people, when they do any type of breath work, it's all anterior focus, never lateral or posterior. So that's what we're doing here, is getting into that posterior breath as well as the lateral breath. And now, Tin, go ahead and bring it back. And then Ashley's going to anchor the hip. He's going to rotate back a little bit more. So that way we can get into the front. So right now you can't see it, but we've got serratus muscles in the front. We've got that anterior sling system that he's probably got some tightness in. So we're working all through there. And then we'll have our clients just rotate going forward and back into it. And hopefully he can get even lower in those range of motions, reaching forward and then reaching back.
And it will be the next slide of the missing link with the breath work. So a lot of time, I always tell my client that like when they breathe all the way here, they just think about the diaphragm. And the lower back has to get that feel as well. The one of the missing link, no one talks about when they do breath work or even they teach breath work is the pelvic floor. the pelvic floor is actually one of the missing link that I've seen. And when I tell people to start thinking about the pelvic floor, the hip is start getting open and creating that space. Remember, when we breathe, we are the pumping mechanism, right? So when the diaphragm goes down, the pelvic floor has to go down and get that stretch as well. So now when we talk about structure, volume, airflow, and then we're going to talk about the muscle. So now we're going to talk about the muscle. Once they giving us that structure and the volume, once they understand the concept, the pumping mechanism concept, then we're going to go into that. What is the muscle? What the muscle is doing? Diaphragm is a muscle, a pelvic floor is a muscle. They do the opposite thing at the same time, just like our bicep and tricep. If our bicep is being contracted, our tricep has to get the length. So what happens if two muscles is pulling on the same joint? Is if my tricep is not releasing it, is pulling in the same joint, dysfunction is going to happen. No matter how much you're trying to do the belly breath, right? Everybody talk about breathe into your belly, breathe into your belly. If the pelvic floor is constricted, no matter what dysfunction is going to happen, you're not going to give me that full force of that breath, right? So now I will always coach my client. You just think about the bottom of your pelvic floor, right? I will have them. So our client has a little bit less sensation to the able-bodied clients because we have other trainer over here. Just want to let you guys know. Why do we want to go 2 inches below the belly button? So I always push a little bit of a pressure down below the belly button. That is where your pelvic floor muscles are. And also that is your center of gravity. If our client can first activate that and have the awareness of where the center of gravity is, everything else you're going to do later on, standing, balancing, and everything is going to be so much better. So you want to coach the client that, hey, this is the breath that is not just practicing here. We would like you to continue having this awareness of your breath and your pelvic floor throughout the entire time. So whenever you feel like, oh, you're about to fall, you're losing control, reorganize yourself with this breath. All right, take a step back and breathe all the way down there and reorganize yourself. So that is reorganizing your nervous system again. So your nervous system is going to feel safe to do whatever it's going to do again later on. So you're not fighting it. If your brain is fighting it, you're not performing it. So organize and reorganize this. So 2 finger downs, right? Below the belly button. Give your client a little bit of that awareness. Can you feel that pressure into the pelvic floor? Now, when you inhale, push into my finger a little bit. So now think about relaxing your pelvic floor. How do we relax our pelvic floor? What does our pelvic floor do, right? Going to pee, going to poop, you have anterior and posterior, your levator ani, and the front of the pelvic floor, right? So I know the whole entire pelvic floor is just one muscle, but the thing is, we do control the both part of the action, okay? So you want to have that sensation just to say hello to your pelvic floor. Hey, reintroduce your pelvic floor, that lengthening to your brain so that your pelvic can get lengthened so that your diaphragm can contract fully. Does that make sense? Right? So,
and there's so many different exercises that people can be in. And so when we put clients in these positions, then we can go into that breath work, like what Ashley is saying. So
if you guys want to try, you guys can try that now. Think about breathe all the way down. So think about just going to letting the pee and poop go a little bit. And you don't have to push it just to say hello, right? Nothing crazy, just to have that awareness. So the body, so we talk about internal receptor as well, right? So a higher hierarchy system. We have external receptors where your body is, your proprioceptions, right? Outside of that environment, we also have inside of the environment, interoceptors. How well can we control and feel and aware inside of our body, our heart rate, the muscle, the inside of our body, the diaphragm, the pelvic floor, the intercostal muscle, right? How well can we feel that? How well can you connect to your interoceptor, right? So this is what you have to do first. Be aware of inside of an environment, and then it's gonna grow out.
Another good thing about being in this position too is some clients, when they're laying on their back and you're trying to do breath work, it's really hard to get into. So going into this flex position essentially, and sideline is actually a really good, safe position for a lot of clients to try to activate. And if you're in this position, say you have the ball, and the client can't really connect to the breath, then we like doing child pose as well as another, exercise for clients to get into the posterior side of the breath work as well. So before we go into the next one, I kind of want to see, Tim, can you bring that arm overhead again? And I just want to see, because he's been in this position for a while and dealing with the fascial system, we have to kind of give it some time to go into the movement. If I were to grab this leg, you can actually see I'm able to go a little further back with his leg. So now I can get into this whole frontal part of his quad and get into the psoas and the glute med as well through here. So even just being in the position as we're talking, it's still beneficial for the client. They can sit in this position at home. If you're a caregiver, you can put them here, and it doesn't have to be the ball. You can put a couple of pillows underneath them and have them just stay in this position. It's really good for their fascial system just to get lengthened out. So now let's get him upright. Go into a seated position. Let's just see if there's any change. So bringing your feet off to the side. And there may not be some change, you know, especially when we're dealing with the fascial system. So if I were to put you guys in the middle, I see a little change there.
Yeah, you see
This
how
is
like
a
his
little-
left hip is not as hiking up.
And then we've got a little bit of some like loosening in his shirt through here. So he's not as laterally flexed. How do you feel, Tin?
I feel like this way more.
Yeah, so
Like this.
right. So we released a lot of that tension. So he just said that he's actually feeling more tension on this side, which I would say so, especially this hip. You can see how low it's dipped down in the camera here. So we're going to move to the child pose, but for him, I probably would do it on the other side, maybe not as long. But I would also give him that movement on the other side to get that lateral flexion. Let's go into child pose.
Mhm.
So let's move that out of the way.
Like this.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. While they get set, any questions you guys want to put in the chat or turn your mic on and we can kind of talk about? Any questions?
Yeah, let us know if you guys have any questions.
And Tin's a show off, so he just gets himself
So
into
he's
position.
level, in case
Mhm.
nobody know. C5 and 6.
So
He has a very arch of his lower back most of the time. Ribcage flares out
mhm.
and always compensated with the banana back. So the child's pose is a really good way for him to loosen this up. And the compression to the front, elongate the back.
Yep. Other things that if the client can't get into this position right now, we don't have any bolsters on him, but say if we've got some like laxity in the hips and the knees, then we would put some kind of
Bolster in
bolster.
between.
Yeah, so that way he can set his hips, especially if you got someone with too much flexion in their knees. We are sticklers on any type of joint protection. So for him, he's okay. We've got some really good integrity in his body. But for someone who may be on the more flaccid side, I would put a bolster so they can place their hips down on that. Okay.
Sometimes like something in between the knee as
Like
well.
a foam roller of
Mhm.
some sort.
Yeah.
So being in this position, we try to make sure you can see he's already done it, but the hands, we try to get his hands to stay open. Some clients, especially our quadriplegics, they create like a fist, right? So even though the function may not be there yet, we still want to open because that fascial system still needs to be anchored through the hands. So with Tin, go ahead and push your hands down. And I want you to be active, but I don't want you going forward. You want to stay your hips back. So almost think like you're reaching your hands forward to the mirrors and try to elongate your whole system, your whole spine and your arms. And when he's here, we can go into some breath, right? We can kind of tell him, go back into that 2 inches below the belly button, see if he can try to find some breathing in the posterior side of the lungs and the diaphragm. So from here, reps and sets, we don't really look at. It's more just how much can we get a quality movement more than anything.
And everyone is a little bit different. Some clients are tighter and it takes them longer to relax into that pose. So that's another thing. We always want to work, everything is so contract, brace it, right? So it's the hardest thing is actually for them to relax into it, right? Relaxing is the hardest part. So everybody just want to work and work and work, okay? So you have to release. This is why we need to release the system, release the compensatory system first before we can even activate.
And I'll even give you guys a kind of like a view on top so you could see what his spine is doing up here. So that's another view that we're looking at. You can see that the spine is way more neutral, but I feel like I can kind of see, I don't know if you guys can, the whole lateral flexion again is happening on that side right there too. So if we're still seeing that lateral flexion as we did when we were sitting, I then might have him, let's see if I can put y'all here. There we go. I might have myself be positioned here and have him reach this way. So now we're again going into that lateral flexion, that lateral fascia, and then having him really reach that hand over the opposite arm and try to get into that breath on this side. So take a big inhale, and I can feel him. I'm just palpating and kind of feeling the feedback from his body, and I can feel the breath really expanding through the ribs on this left side. So that could be another way for you to see if you still see that flexion on one side versus the other. We go into that opposite lateral flexion, and we can kind of bring him back and go from there.
Yeah, sometimes the client can't get into this position. We like the Pilates ball underneath, anything on the chest, on the belly, right? So it depends on the body.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And breathe in and out through your nose only.
There's so many ways, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different
Try to breathe in
breath work.
And you can exhale through your mouth.
Okay, 10, get down.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we're going to go back to, before we go back to the screen share, any questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah.
Anything in the chat? Let me see.
Yeah, or you guys can make a note.
Stephanie, what signs do you look for when there's a completed cycle of breath work?
Oh, the shrinking and decompressing. So usually I will help the client to feel it themselves. So if they're in a lying down position, the rib cage, I will have their hand into the rib cage or the belly, right? So like I always say sensory input, right? What does sensory input mean? Sensory is just like data, information to your brain. If you can feel it on your own, that shrinking to exhale everything out, that's how you're gonna feel. And I will always tell my client, sometimes you're gonna have to make that decision yourself. You're gonna have to feel it on your own as well, right? So we can see the expansion and how much expansion you have and how much of the shrinking and decompression you have.
So what Steph was saying was, when are we moving on from this part, right? So most of the time, I feel like when I get feedback from the client that they're more aware of their sensory or they have a different sensation come through, then I know that I've completed this portion and can then shift to integrating and activating other areas that we're going to go over as well. So yes, just like tingles, any type of sensation. We had a client, I believe yesterday, the day before, he had random tingles into his feet. And so we really hone in with our clients, like we want as much communication with them and what kind of feedback they're getting, because we're not in their body, right? And the more that they can communicate to us and tell us what they're feeling, and even if they're not feeling anything, that's still feedback to us. So we try to get as much feedback from the client so we know that their body is starting to get more of that integration of the breath work. Thank you for the question. Okay, back to the presentation. 1 second. Perfect. Okay. So off to the side here, you can see I had like a little extra tip. We didn't do it with tin, but you can also add a resistant band to the hands themselves. So how he was reaching the arm over, you can then anchor a resistant band above them to where they can get a little bit more of that lateral flexion. That could be something that you can add into the session. And then same thing with the child pose. I was doing it on my end as far as like pulling the arm over to the side. But if you're by yourself of some sort, or if you just want to just be anchored into a resistant band, you can just put it in the hand and shift it to one side or the other. Okay. So
That's the missing link that we just talked about, the pelvic floor connection, right? So stop thinking about the diaphragm so much. We're so overrated on the diaphragm, and everybody's just thinking about contracting the diaphragm. Think about, you know what, you cannot just keep contracting your bicep if you're not releasing the tricep, right? So think about your pelvic floor. What is your pelvic floor doing? But first, think about the pressure first, right? The structure. And then everything else is going to come. And then the pelvic floor, and you can coach your client, and then you can move on to the next thing.
yeah. So going into the second portion of the lymphatic system, this is kind of going back into, we don't just go straight into movement, right? So far, if you think of like a checkbox, right? We've gone into breathwork mechanics. Next would be your lymphatics, your cranial. Then we get into what we're all really great at of the movement. So Ashley's going to go into some of the points. And again, if you guys can join in on this with us, you will feel differently, and hopefully you can give us some feedback on some of the sensations. So we're going to, do you want to take this off? Yeah.
Yeah, just this part right here. So they're not, yeah, there you go. All right, so now we talk about the lymph. Why the lymph is so important, right? So I've already kind of mentioned it, that why the breath to the pressure to the blood, how the blood move only by pressure, right? The blood move the limbs, right? And then the lymph nodes is how it move the waste out of the cell. So now the lymph, if you're getting stagnated everywhere, you're not going to be able to move well. So we have to get the lymphatic system flow well, blood can flow well, so that you can distribute the correct oxygen, nutrition into the body, right? So now we have some choke points, okay? We're not going to get too much details into it because this is only 1 hour. I know we already go over our time.
We're almost
right?
there.
Yeah, we're almost there, all right? So now the 6 choke points that we have, that you guys can write it down or anything, and we already have it over here, but we only have the 3 right now. But I'm going to give you the rest of the 3. So it's the collarbone. The collarbone is very important. Nobody will come to anyone or the doctors telling them my collarbone hurt. No, the pain is never going to be there. But the pain is going to come up somewhere else in the body, like your shoulder, your lower back, and everything else, right? You're actually a lot of the pain, especially chronic pain, is protecting your visceral system, okay? So now, if this is stagnated, this is your thoracic outlet. Where's your thoracic outlet? It's this 2-part right over here. Everything get drained. Your brain, all the cell is going to get drained all the way down to the thoracic dot towards the left side over here. So these part right here needs to get released. If they don't get released, everything's going to get stuck and stagnated, right? So your brain has its own lymphatic system itself. It's called the lymphatic. It works during your sleep. It does a power wash during your sleep, and it washes all the waste out. Your brain shrinks about 30% when it does the power wash. Why does it shrink 30%? Because it needs to create space. This is why our whole body system needs to create that space. Your organ needs to move, right? So this is why the pressure is going to help to create that space to get the system and the waste out of the cell. So now when it gets drained, so if this thoracic outlet gets stagnated, nothing is going to get drained all the way here. So what happened? You're going to get swollen. You're going to see your eyes going to get swollen. Your limb is going to get swollen. Everything, your neck, everything here, right? So you wake up, you're feeling puffy and everything. It's because your lymphatic, your brain is not draining the waste out. So now you're going to have to release the collarbone. All right, we're going to have to talk to the release. It's another course, right? Release the collarbone. And now the second choke point is your neck, behind the ear and all the way down to your neck. That's where all the lymph nodes are. So you're going to drain all the way down. You have to release your leg. And now your armpit is very important, right? So everyone is over here, especially our clients. They hardly get their arm over their head, right? Even though it's just, this is why the grip hanging is so important. That determines your longevity. It's true, right? So you're going to have to get all the limbs inside the armpit out. That is your 3 major choke point. And the other 3 is your belly button, your groin area, and behind the knee. Those are the choke points that you want to get released as well, right? Vibration on your belly button is really good. And to move that organ, your organ need to move inside. They all pack and jam inside of the body, especially our clients that sit in the wheelchair all the time. They don't move. If you have constipation, that means you have a limb issues, right? That you have blood flow issues. It's not just constipated, right? So because everything is jam-packed in there, nothing is moving. So this is why we call bowel movement. Shit gotta move, okay? So we need to move. So think about if you stagnated here, guess what happened? You have shit everywhere, all right? So when we talk about the lymph release, you are literally giving a shower inside of your body. We need to shower outside. We also need a shower inside of your body to release all that waste. And the organ needs to move, right? All right, so now when we talk about, all right, so that's your lymph. So now we talk about the cranial nerve, right? So why is the cranial nerve is the next hierarchy system? Our cranial nerve is literally the roots of our body. We have 12 cranial nerve on each side, okay? We don't have just one. We have separated, right? So now your vagus nerve being the biggest one because it go all the way down to your uterus, all right? It connects to your gut all the way down there, right? So this is why the vagus nerve is so important. And when we talk about the nerve, you want to think about the human body is an upside down tree. Your roots is inside the soil, and your arm and your leg are the branches. Okay? So now, if the flower doesn't bloom on the branch, you don't go check what happened to the branch. You check the soil. Okay? It's the same thing as our human body. If your arm and your leg cannot move, right? You don't go check on the arm and the leg. You go check in the soil, right? Everybody's, oh, my leg cannot move. All right, we're going to work on your leg. No, we have to have the nerve innervation and all that split end in order for your leg to move. So treat the soil first before you go on to your limb system, right? All right, so the trigeminal nerve is really huge. It's one of the biggest nerve in your cranial nerve, right? And we're not going to get into it. So the trigeminal nerve, to release it, is all about the face. This is why if you can start practicing your face muscle and know how to relax your face muscle, everything else can get relaxed as well. Okay? And then your optic nerve, this is just 3 major ones that we want to, it's not the major cranial nerve that we talk about. It's just because we're having this master course, so I picked these 3. Your vagus nerve, trigeminal, and your optic nerve. Why I picked an optic nerve, not the glossopharyngeal nerve or anything else? It's just because the movement that we're going to get into later. So your eyes go, head go, body goes, right? Mm-hmm. So when we talk about the optic nerve, we want to release those optic nerve. And if your eye muscle are tight, it's only going to restrict your movement of your eyes, where you're going to look. And if your eyes are restricted, your head is going to get restricted, your movement is going to restrict it. So you have 6 muscles on each eye. They all connected to your brainstem. When you look, those muscle fire, your brainstem, all the muscle here is going to get fired up as well. And that is what telling the brain what to do and send the signal to tell your body what to do and to come out with the motor output. So your eyes is one of the major sensory input, your vestibular system, your inner ear, and all of that is going to come together before you can go into the movement. I know we just literally brushed through it because we have limited time.
All right. So going into our neurodynamic patterns, we, again, kind of like with Ashley said about, why did we pick specific things? Are they the most important? No, we just wanted to pick specific ones to help just for this masterclass. So like I said, quadruped is one of the movement patterns that we love teaching. A lot of times, and I kind of put these pictures together. This is actually one of my clients who I go to their house and you can see we're on the floor. I'm not doing anything crazy, but what's so cool about this is we integrated the whole body, which you'll see in the second video or the second photo, to then get him stronger in his shoulder girdle. That allowed him to get into his hands. So kind of breaking down these three photos here. On the left, you can see I'm just anchoring his hips. He had very limited movement, or he kept wobbling side to side. So I had to go and limit this to stabilize him. But then I noticed that his arms were actually inwardly flexed. They were internally rotated. So when I go to integrate his upper body and anchor his hands, and you can see he's got the flexed fingers. I tried my best, what we can with our clients who are just very, very tight in their hands. I go and try to open them. And as soon as we did, and I anchored his hands, he was able to just lock in his shoulders and he was able to control his own hips. But I had to move my anchor from his hips to his arms. So what that means to us is that we don't need to be so close to our clients and try to hold on to where their center of gravity is. If we give them the right feedback, for him, it was incorporating his arms. He's able to control his hips. And so when we were doing that, we just integrated movement. So literally all that we did was just forward and back movements and side to side movements as well. And it was the most movement and control that I've ever seen with him. I've been working with this kid for 10 plus years, actually, since I started this journey with neuro. And he was super excited to see that he was able to move his own hips. So at the end of the day, it empowers him to see like, hey, I'm doing something. He's been injured for, I believe, 15 years or so. And he can see that he was actually doing the movement himself. I was in front of him. I wasn't moving his hips. He had to control everything. And what's nice about being on the floor, if we do shift one way more than the other and he goes and falls, we're on the floor. So it's an easy, safe environment for him. And the next time, I believe this was a month later of us doing a session, that last photo there, we got him onto his hands. He locked in. I was able to, because we had extension of the elbows, there was a little bit more limited range of motion to his hands. So I try to open them up as much as I can, but he was able to, right now in this photo, he's sitting backwards on the bolster, but he was able to lock in his shoulders again and help pull his hips to where his shoulders continued forward even past his wrist there. And he was able to push himself back while I was out of the way filming this. And he, again, had a cool experience that he's never done before. The biggest takeaways and cues for this, I would say, is definitely anchoring the arms and anchoring that whole system into the body. Everyone is so focused, like how I was in that first photo there. I was focused on their hips. But when I go ahead and step back and see what is his whole body doing, and then I notice this internal rotation of the shoulders, I then go and try to integrate the whole body. And then we got a different result to where I'm not needed on the back end. And we were able to do way more weight shifts and stuff like that. And again, it's such a simple movement and we have all probably done it. But the fact that we integrated the whole system and not just focused on the hips, he was able to get more results out of it, which is really great.
Yeah, and we talk about integration. Let's do this as an example. And the breath that we talk about, or breathing all the way down to the pelvic floor where the center of gravity is. And when they can find the breath, we have so much great result with our client. When they get into the position, they wobbling left and right, and I'll cue them. Hey, remember the breath that we did, right? In the beginning? Give me that again. Breathe all the way down to that pelvic floor and where the center of gravity and find that for me. They were able to be shifting just back and forth and without falling back and side to side. Yeah, we see that all the time.
So that's, again, just one of the neurodynamic movements that we do with our clients. This next one is our deep squat, and Ashley will talk about this one.
So deep squat is never in the developmental patterning in the neuro world. Nobody teach about the deep squat, right? The thing is, everybody trying to squat down from the top. You have to own that position first before you can even get into that position. And also, why is the deep squat is so good, right? All the baby drop into that deep squat, right? And it's supposed to be a natural pattern. Everybody born to be able to get into the deep squat. So once you can see our neuro client, those are the two baby, they already know how to get into the deep squat. It's natural and organic to them. But the other client, TM, C level, T level, once they get into the deep squat, look at the ankle mobility. All of our client lack of the dorsiflexion and lack of the compression of the joint. And now we're talking about compression, not the spinal compression. So when we talk about compression in the front of our body, it's actually open up the back. It actually helps them to decompress the spine, right? So when we talk about the front and back, if we're shortening the front, the back is going to get opened up. And this is a very simple thing to do. If they cannot get into the deep squat position, you see how like the other Crystal and Travis on the right below corner, you can elevate them. As long as the knee go over the hip and higher than the hip, they're fine. And just get the knee shift over their toe to get the joint that everybody can feel their toes and the ankle being loaded. So you have to feel your feet before you can get up and stand. If you're not aware of it, nothing is going to change. So the deep squat is going to help them to feel first, right? The compression, decompress the spine. And now we're going to move on to knees over toe. You're going to communicate to the client how well can you feel your feet and how well can you feel your toes and your ankle. Your feet is the only thing that touches the ground when you stand and walk. So be aware of your feet. So get that compression into those joints first. Now they can feel your feet and say hello to your feet and say hello to your ankle. Then they're going to have a little bit more successful rate when they stand and walk. They can feel so much more in their feet and the ankle.
Anything else?
No, but there's a lot more to it, but it'll be next class.
Okay, and then the last little concept is the 2-lever versus 4-lever. I will just say before Ashley explains this has been super helpful for a lot of our clients, just thinking that there's endless of exercises, right? But the concepts of understanding what 2-lever versus 4-lever really means, you can add it to any type of exercise or movement pattern with your clients.
Right. So now I'm going to explain what 4-lever and 2-lever is, right? So we usually start with the 4-lever. The deep squat is a 4-lever core work already. So we're talking about 4-lever and 2-lever is feet to core sequence, right? Your feet and your big toe has the most and direct connection to your brain, period, right? So now if your feet, you can feel your feet, your brain can sense that. That's a sensory input. Again, what is sensory? It's just data, information to your brain. Your brain collect all the data and information and to give you the output, movement, right? So now when we talk about 4-lever, can you guys see your feet, my feet and ankle? So now I'm talking about the joint. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a 4-lever core. So you see the first one, I have my client, Polly. He's leaning forward. So I call this lean forward. When you lean forward here, if you have the 4-lever, if you're already in the deep squat position, your knees over your toe, you're going to start feeling your quad, your ankle, and your foot, and the weight shifted to your forefoot right away. So now, once your weight shifted to your forefoot, it's going to hit your core right away. You have no choice but push to come back. You have to engage your core, right? If you don't, you're just going to fall forward. A lot of our clients, they can't shift forward into the toe and the forefoot because they're so afraid to fall forward because the anterior core is not strong enough. And this is also why when we come to your two lever later, they lock out the knee, they hyperextend the knee to find stability. So first have the client learn how to shift forward. Once you shift forward, if you guys can sit there and you guys can try. I would recommend you guys try all of these stuff on your own to experience it on your own body before you teach your client, right? So I will never do anything that without myself trying it first. Okay. So when you shift forward over here, you're gonna feel your forefoot and your toe right away. You're gonna feel your quad right away. You're gonna hit your core right away, and then you're gonna push, and then you're gonna come back. That is your four lever, right? So we can do a half kneeling, right, like this. This is your four lever, but now what happened over here is your two, 1 and 2. This is your two lever when you're four lever. So when you do a half split kneel position, right? So you're gonna split. So now if you do a tall kneeling, that's gonna be a two lever core work, right? So when you stand, it's also a two lever, 1 and 2. So now this one, I call it Michael Jackson forward lean. You're just gonna forward lean and then back. It's actually a very simple exercise. Everything is very simple. It's nothing that you guys already don't know. But the thing is, if you have a different intention and different thought and mindset towards it, the outcome can be so different. So now you're just gonna have a client to stand, just a tall two lever. Once they can feel the shifting the weight back and forth, right? Just the Michael Jackson lean, because you know why? When you walk, you can do a split stand as well. For the client can walk like a stroke client or anything like that. If they're always locking out the knee and walk like this, and that's because they're trying to find stability. So when you can do a split stand, just have them do the weight shift, right? Like that. Learn how to shift forward to the forefoot and distribute the tripod and push into your big toe. That is going to engage your core, because when we walk, you have to go forward, not back. A lot of people just go push their hip back. Your hip is lead the way, has to go forward. You will want to walk forward, your hip has to go forward, right? So you have to learn how to shift forward and control that. Once you shift forward, it's going to hit your core right away. This is why feet to core sequence. Once you shift to your forward, you're going to hit your core. So that is your very simple 2 lever and 4 lever core feet to core work. Okay. I know we're going a little bit over time. If you guys don't mind.
I know everyone's busy. But that is our little master class. Here is all of our info. We have our emails on there. So if you ever want to contact us to learn more about what we do, we are trying to come up together with a workshop, whether that is taught here in Dallas, or if you have a facility that you would love us to come out to, that is something that we can talk to you guys about a little bit more. We'd love to just learn more about what you all do and get feedback as well. So at the end of our session here, probably by Friday, I'm actually going to stop share real quick so you could see all beautiful faces. But we'll send you guys a survey if you guys don't mind filling it out, so that way we can get feedback. Like I said, this is our first time. This is us teaching. So we definitely want any feedback that you may have, or if you guys are interested in learning more about our philosophy and our method. But otherwise, we are all done. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Do you guys have any question? Let's do a
Little
Q&A
Q&A.
towards the end, right? If you guys still have time, we don't mind going over a little bit.
Yeah.
So if you guys can stay, go ahead. You guys can ask away. And like I said, you know what? Really try the 4 lever and 2 lever core. Once you can feel that hitting into the core and see how you feel, you can coach your client into loading into the joint, into your muscles so much better. They can feel and more aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to feel it on your own as well.
I do have a question. What would be a way to modify the deep squat at home? Like being able to get them in that position. My son's a C5, C6. So trying to get him in that position, like any type of tips, tricks, anything to use, or
Yeah, so you can get something lower. So do you guys have a table? If you guys have a table, you can just see, for example, so if he was sitting on a table like this, I know this is a little bit higher, you can put something a little bit lower, like I said, right? And from here, first, he needs to learn how to push. Get his body lower. When we talk about compression, it's also the safety zone for the brain. So the baby in the inside of the womb, everything is compressing. That is the first position that your brain knows that's the safest place to be. That's why the deep squat, the compression, your brain will still feel safe automatically. He needs to feel safe in order to move, right? The brain has to feel safe first, okay? So when he's here, get his chest to his thigh and get to coach him into like getting yourself, your chest to your thigh, get that compression, and then you can be in the back of him and slide his butt down. This is a little bit higher, so you can get a little bit, closer to the bench as well. And now he's already in this position. So he's already in the modified deep squat. His knees already higher than his hip, and you can just go into the rocking position, lean forward, four lever, and then push to come back, work the extensor while pushing into the lower body, pulling from the upper body, right?
And you don't have to be, in that crazy deep squat, even just a little bit, even having him on a seated table of some sort, and then just providing like a Pilates ball under his hips. So can you post it that way?
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that we'll do is have this, and you just put this behind his butt. So if I'm sitting on the edge here,
And then you can also elevate the feet.
so if you can't get him on the floor and say you're, in his chair or on the bed of some sort, you can put this behind him and then
Elevate
you
your
can
feet
get the
as well.
feet.
You don't have to move the body.
So you don't move him. Because sometimes, obviously, it depends on the function of him as well. But you can just put things around him, and now he's in this position. You can have him anchor here, or he can anchor here and work on that extension here as well. The ball on the back is really good to where he can essentially push himself on it. But the goal is for this to give him feedback and to get him into a tall position. Otherwise, what probably happens is this
Yes.
here, right? So if you put a ball under his butt, it'll put him on his sits bone and get into that elongated spine of everything.
Anchor the hip bone down. Just tell him, so in order to sit up, he needs to anchor the tailbone down in order to sit up nice and tall, right? Mm-hmm. Good question. There's a lot of our clients have that problem as well.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No? All right. So if there's no question, then that's it.
Yeah, and if you guys do have questions later on, you have our emails as well. You can always send them to me. And then if you ever want to hop on a call with us, we'd love to just learn more about all of you guys. And we'll chat soon. We'll let you guys know whenever we do our next workshop.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.